welcome you. For those of you that I didn't meet on the bus or in the kennels area, I am Ranger Kimber Burrows. I'm an interpretive ranger here at the park as well as a year-round resident. So I do want to welcome you to Denali National Park and Preserve Sled Dog Kennels. Very briefly, what you're about to see today, I'll kind of give you a rundown of our program. I'm going to share probably as much information with you as I can in about 10 minutes to 15 minutes. That's as much time as the dogs are going to give me, and then they're going to start getting pretty excited, and that's my cue to step out off the stage here and let them steal the show. So they're going to let me know when that time arrives. At that point, we're going to hook up 5 dogs to a sled dog team, and they are safely going to pull me around this gravel track where we'll stop right here in front of our viewing stands in the gravel pad right in front of you. At that time, I'll kind of share with you a little bit about the dog as well as their place on the sled dog team. If we've got time, we'll then do a little question and answer session at the very end. And then we'll have time to ask personal questions or ask additional questions after the show. So if you don't get an opportunity to ask a question during the show, please hang on to it and certainly ask me afterwards. Okay? Just with a quick raising of the hand, because we've got a group this size, I won't ask everybody, but how many folks did have an opportunity to meet one of the dogs? Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, I hope in your meeting with the dogs that you noticed how friendly, how energetic, and how much they love their job here at the kennels area. And perhaps a few of you do have a little bit of that dog slobber and fur on you. So wear it proudly throughout the rest of the park, because everybody will know that you've been here to our kennels area. One of the things, when I was asked to do a sled dog demonstration and a show down here, when I came over here to the kennels area, I kind of had to scratch my head a little bit. You see, after having a pretty long winter here in Denali National Park, when I came over here and thought about sled dogs, I figured, well, there's kind of something missing in this whole show. What do you think that might be? Yes, there's no snow, and that is kind of a big part of sled dog and sled dog teams here, as well as the temperatures. But I won't subject you to those today, I promise. What I am going to ask you to do is a bit of a favor, and that is that I'm going to ask you to travel into the heart of an Alaska winter with me. And so I have a little bit of audio I'd like to play for you. In that audio, you're probably going to hear perhaps the swishing of some snow. You may hear the grinding of some ice as a sled crosses over it. You may hear nothing at all. That's not because you can't hear the audio. It's simply that quiet here in the wintertime. In fact, I describe the sound as the sound of stillness. And that's truly what it is here in Alaska in the winter. So I'm going to grab that audio so I can set it up and play it for you. In the meantime, while I do that, I'm going to ask you to get that imagination cap out and put it on so that you can sort of take yourself back into winter. Okay? So I'll be right back.
Wow,
That's one of those trees with a big bump on it. Remember yes, birds, the way they call them? They call birds, something. Yesterday, they had a lot of trees that they had used as posts when we went. Yeah, that's when they make those bowls and stuff with those the knobs of like that one had the big knob on the
may
side.
have to imagine it. It doesn't like me today. I'm so sorry. I will share with you what it is, though. Like I said, here with the sled dog team, what you're going to hear is that sound of stillness. The swishing of the snow past the sled. You may hear the claw brake going over some ice as perhaps you cross over the Teklanika River. The rest of the time, you may actually hear the wind in the spruce trees around you. And maybe you hear your dogs as they're reaching their pace at about 6 miles per hour. So while you've got those imagination caps on, because I know you've had plenty of time to do that, I want you to think back and imagine the year 1902. You're a 20-year-old kid from Chicago. The temperatures have gone from 30 below to 45 below. You're wearing a canvas parka that falls just below your knees. It has a fur-trimmed hood. You have felt path boots on your feet. Your dogs, again, have found their pace at 6 miles per hour, and you have covered 430 miles and have 470 miles yet to go. You started your own mail carrying service, and every letter in your sled is 25 cents in your back pocket. Lucky for you, you have 300 pounds of payload in your sled. So keep that visualization with you as I highlight some of the impressive and amazing stories of our rangers and this working sled dog team. Okay? The person that I was describing to you, his name is Harry Karstens. Harry Karstens came up to Alaska during the Klondike Gold Rush. By the age of 19, he was working approximately 3 claims. Unfortunately for Harry Karstens, he wasn't very successful at prospecting or finding gold and striking it rich like so many folks were looking to do. So instead, being the entrepreneur that he was, he started his own mail carrying service. And at that time, here in this frozen country, those were the true heroes. You see, growing up in Alaska, Harry Karstens didn't have a whole lot of mushing experience, as you can imagine. So while he was out there, it truly was learning on the job, not only for him, but his sled dog team as well. And so there was quite a bit of building of that relationship between Harry and his dogs. In fact, Harry Karstens said this about that experience. He said, "I stayed with the mail and had many a tough and exciting time. In fact, since then, I've been living on borrowed time." So to me, that statement coming from Harry Karstens says a lot about what he experienced out there and what his dogs experienced as well. So it wasn't until the summer of 1906 when Harry Karstens' life changed forever. That's when he met this man, Charles Sheldon. Charles Sheldon came to Alaska from New York. He was a big game hunter as well as a self-taught naturalist. And Charles Sheldon, when he arrived here in Alaska, knew that he was searching for one thing in particular. Those of you that have gone out into the park, do you know what he was looking for?
Doll sheep.
Excellent. He was looking for the Dall sheep. And so he certainly wanted to connect with a guide, somebody who knew the territory, someone who knew the land. And so all the locals certainly said, Harry Karstens is your guide. And so Charles Sheldon hired Harry Karstens to show him around the area so that he could locate the Dall sheep. And so in doing so, Sheldon fell in love with this special place. Not hard to do. And he knew that he wanted to observe the Dall sheep in all 4 seasons. So before he left here, he arranged with Karstens to return for the year of 1907-08. And in doing so, during that stay in this area, in this park, he noticed a severe decline in the Dall sheep population. And so it was at that time that he felt that he needed to do something and do something drastic. And so Sheldon left, and he never returned. Instead, he spent the next 10 years in Washington, D.C., lobbying for the protection of this place. And it wouldn't be until Congress declared it a national park, Mount McKinley National Park, in 1917, which was fantastic. However, it was on paper only. You see, folks were tied up with the war efforts, and there wasn't any money to support national parks. So we wouldn't get our first operating budget until 1921, a whopping $8,000. And so at the time, the first director of the National Park Service, Steve Mather, went to Charles Sheldon and said, Sheldon, who do you think should manage the protection of this new 2 million acre park? And so who do you think Sheldon said?
Karstens.
Absolutely. Harry Carson. So at the age of 42, Harry Carson showed up here as sort of a one-man band, right? He knew he needed a team, however. So guess who Harry brought with him? His dogs. Yep, exactly. So I have a picture here of Harry Carson's with his dogs. He did bring the first dog team here in 1922. By that point, he was a very accomplished musher. In fact, Charles Sheldon said this about Harry Carson. He said he always took the best care of his dogs, taking no end of trouble to prepare ample food and arranging the best available spots for them to rest. He always insisted, however, on their strict attention to work and never permitted one to shirk. One dog was so attached to Carson's that even after my kind treatment throughout an entire winter, it refused to follow me. So to me, that statement from Charles Sheldon says a lot about the relationship between Harry Carson's and his dog team. Carson's required that level of commitment, that work ethic, not only from his dogs, but from his employees as well. So if you were a new employee and you wanted to come and work in this national park, you would have approached Carson's and said, I'm here for a job. And Carson's would have said, great, here's your dog team. You have several hundred miles to patrol, and you have 1 week. If you return here within that 1 week, and everybody is healthy, then you have a job. However, if you do not return, I will come looking for you, but you had better figure out an option for different employment. So that was Harry Carson's hiring process, and I'm certainly glad that that is not the hiring process today. Those early patrols, they covered up to 400 miles a month, so quite a bit of territory covered. In that early time, there was a need for shelter. During that time, many of the rangers stayed in canvas tents. And so they came to Harry Carson's and said, Carson's, we need shelters, we need cabins out there. And Carson said, well, of course, you know how to build a cabin. Here's $15, go build a cabin. So how many folks have been out into the park? All right, perhaps you saw some of these patrol cabins. They're placed approximately 20 to 25 miles apart. And that would be 1 day's of mushing time or distance. So we can go from patrol cabin to patrol cabin. Today, our rangers and our sled dogs that some of you got the opportunity to meet here carry on that same level of commitment, that same work ethic. These dogs here, each one of them cover approximately 1,000 miles during the winter. For our patrols throughout the winter, it's a total for our rangers of 3,000 miles. So this is truly a working team. Don't be fooled by what they look like right now, all laying on top of their houses, begging for some pets. They do beg for that in the wintertime as well. However, they're much more active. So this is truly their summer vacation. During the winter, we ask these sled dogs for their support in keeping our wilderness value here in our 2 million acres of wilderness space. They also haul in quite a bit of material for researchers here in the park. If any of you had the opportunity to walk across our suspension bridge over on the Triple Lakes Trail, those materials were hauled in by our sled dogs. These sled dogs also hauled in 3,000 pounds worth of building materials to help repair some of those early patrol cabins. Truly a working team. But it goes beyond the work ethic, and it crosses over into trust and dependability. In fact, on one occasion here in the park, a ranger was out on patrol. His team stopped. He walked to the front of his team as he stepped off his sled, probably a little bit upset that they wouldn't continue moving. He walked to the front of that team. He got to his lead dogs, and then he looked down at about 1,000 feet. That's when it becomes trust, right? And a lot of respect. If we think back to that visualization that I asked you to do earlier, the vastness of this place, especially during the winter time, there has to be trust and respect between the ranger and their sled team. But despite all of that, despite the work ethic, the dependability, the trust, in 1940 it was out with the old and in with the new. And as the dogs went off to help the war efforts, afterwards, Park to Service decided it's time to mechanize. In came the M7 Snow Jeep. So we are going to motorize and mechanize the backcountry. Any thoughts on what might happen or what could go wrong?
Breakdown.
Just about anything, right? Sure. Getting fuel up here in the wintertime can sometimes be a challenge. Keeping your brake lines from freezing up can sometimes be a challenge at -50 or -45. We also know that our team here is sustainable. Their emissions don't add to our carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. In fact, we compost their emissions in the back. Not that you want to go see it, but just so you know it's there. So certainly, mechanization in the backcountry here didn't work. So I have here a picture, and you're welcome to come and take a look at them after our show. But we have an M7 Snow Jeep that has fallen through the ice. And it's clear that another M7 Snow Jeep has tried to rescue that Snow Jeep and has also fallen through the ice. The only thing that I think that would make this picture better is that we had a sled dog team pulling them both out. That would be beautiful, wouldn't it? Absolutely. But despite that, I want to make sure that you get a chance to see some of these qualities of our dog. So I am going to ask that for this portion of our program, that you think about some of these qualities, keep them in your head as they show you their skill. I'll ask that everybody stand behind the front railings here. That would be great. Also, as we hook them up, you're going to notice that when we do so, we're going to pick them up by their collars. Okay, this is not hurting the dog. In fact, it's for their safety as well as for ours. This is going to keep us from accidentally stepping on their paws, and for us, it's going to keep us from getting pulled over by the dogs. They are quite strong work animals. So essentially what this is doing is taking them out of 4-paw drive and putting them into 2-paw drive. Okay? So you're going to see that. The other thing I ask you to do is watch how they change as soon as they see us running over there to get them ready. Okay? And with that, I will be right back.
这个北极熊表演挺有意思的。说这个狗的话呢，大概一个冬天要走3000英里，而这个一个 Ranger 的话呢，大概是1000英里，很可怕。3000英里相当于4800公里，这一只狗，一年冬天拉雪橇。中间这狗还特着急。走了。
Shift the brakes on or how that change? There you go.
手刹，哎呦，还挺快，哇！
好快呢，here they come.
早知道这个北京都用一些狗去拉这雪橇的话，这交通问题早解决了。哇哦！这上班全弄几条狗多好啊！累坏了吧？摸摸脑袋，鼓励一下。这上班的话，弄几条狗，然后中午吃午饭的时候，把吃剩的骨头给这狗吃，这就交通问题彻底解决。多环保啊，一点都不释放。哎呀！
Anybody notice how they changed? Yeah. They're excited. They love what they do. The only thing they're wishing now is that that ride was a little longer.
累坏了，这狗他妈的直接瘫了。
So while I'm kind of getting my mic set up here again, and before I introduce you to our dogs, oops, sorry, I certainly want to extend a huge thank you to all the kennel staff here. As you can see, how many hands go into getting that team ready, hooked up, and making this show happen. So certainly want to thank them. So thank you, kennel staff. Awesome. So who we have here, in the front of our team here, these are our lead dogs. And we have Chinook and Elixir. Chinook is an 8-year-old male, and we have Elixir here, who is a 3-year-old female. And so a lot of people often notice their difference in size and things like that. Sometimes it has to do with age, not always, but you might often see sort of a newer lead dog next to a mentor. So a dog that we're trying to kind of strengthen their leadership skills, and putting them next to a dog that's been in lead for a number of years as a mentor is often something that we like to do. So that's what we have here up in the lead. These are the dogs who are listening for the musher or the ranger. You'll notice that there are no reins on our sled. We're not controlling them by pulling on any one direction. It's all by voice. So again, taking you back to that idea of the level of trust and respect that has to be with the team here, the rangers and the sled dogs. Then in the middle here we have our swing dog. As you can imagine, depending on how much weight we have in that sled, we may need to have several dogs on this team. And so as that sled dog team gets longer, we need someone to sort of swing the team. So Mixed is here, who is a 2-year-old male, pretty good sized dog, Mixed is. He is in swing, so he's our swing dog. Sometimes in swing, we often put upcoming leaders there to sort of follow behind the leaders in front of them, giving them an opportunity to observe those leaders. We also